Keeping Score with Rick Horrow, talking about the business issues of sports, and we've had a number of them, obviously, on a regular basis. One of the things that's really exciting is to follow one of the more stable businesses of any international sport, National Hockey League, how it's grown, revenue sharing, labor peace, the years under Gary Bettman's stewardship, and the successful franchises, the Sun Belt strategy, one of the Sun Belt's premier teams under the stewardship of Peter Kamanos and President Don Waddell, Carolina Hurricanes. Don's significant experience in the sports field. He'll tell us about it, but one of the best franchises, certainly in the league. Don, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you, Rick.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it very much. Give us a Don snapshot, kind of an elevator speech of how you got the business and how you ended up running the administrative side of the Hurricanes.
Well, I started my career as a player, worked my way into coaching, and then general manager for many years. And in Atlanta, I took over there in '98, started that franchise, and then we sold the franchise to Winnipeg in 2011. I stayed on for one more year. My last 3 or 4 years in Atlanta, I was doing not only the hockey, but overseeing the business side of the NHL team, the NBA team, and the arena. So got a lot of experience at that point, and then Pete Carmanis called me back in June or May of 2014 and asked me if I'd be interested in coming in here and helping him out here. So that's how I ended up in Raleigh.
How couldn't you succeed working as a kinder, better, gentler, more athletic Stan Kasten? How's that?
Wow, that's pretty darn good. Stan is probably one of the best people I've learned from and worked for. I worked for Stan for quite a few years in Atlanta, and he's a guy that asked a lot of questions, but always supported the decisions. He openly admitted he wasn't a hockey guy, but he understood sports. And he'd ask some tough questions, and you'd give him answers, and he always supported. But I can't say enough good things about Stan Kasten.
Don Waddell, the president of the Carolina Hurricanes.
Right.
The bottom line too for our business audience is diversity and how people feel about the traits that kind of carry them into success in their organization. So, best guy to talk about this. You ran parts of an organization. You didn't play the NBA side, even though you're a hockey player. And so, what do you think for our business listeners is the one trait that sustained and nurtured your rise through sports administration, NHL, and otherwise?
100% is establishing a culture that people enjoy working in. And, we all work a lot of hours in the sports world. People sacrifice a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, because that's when sports are played. So they never get rewarded totally in compensation. So you try to create a culture that people want to be there and they want to do the best job they can for it. And that's been from day one when I started my management career to the day I get out. That's the number one thing on my mind.
Segue into the NHL for a minute. Obviously, sustainability and stability, probably one of the most important traits as well. Media, labor peace. How well you think the NHL is positioned for future growth over the next 10, 15 years?
Well, you touched on it, Rick, when you started. Gary Bettman has done a tremendous job of leading the league. I've been in the NHL since 97, 98, and so I've watched it grow. But, we had a lot of issues on the table through the years with the Player Association and different ownership groups, and Gary's done a tremendous job of bringing that all together. And if you look at where franchises are today, particularly on the valuation side to where they were even 4 or 5 years ago, the increase has been tremendous for our ownership. And, the labor piece, I think, is one thing that the NHL has gone through some tough negotiations, some work stoppages, but we now have a CBA that is beneficial to both the player and to the hockey team. And I give all the credit in the world to Gary and his team.
You've been the one thing that's interesting in your Thrasher Hurricane career is you certainly become one of the resident experts at the positives and negatives of Sunbelt franchises and Gary's Sunbelt strategy. How do you think it's working? Obviously, a certain set of circumstances in Atlanta, then to Winnipeg again, but generally working well in the future of the franchises like the Nashvilles and Florida and Tampa Bay, et cetera?
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. I think if you look at particularly the Florida teams right now, with the ownership groups that have gone in there in Florida recently in the last few years, and Jeff Vinnick in Tampa, the stabilization of the franchise through ownership is the first step. And Tampa Bay hit the home run when Mr. Vinnick bought that franchise, and obviously you see what they're doing not only on the ice but off the ice. That their attendance is strong. Their business side of the sport is very strong. In Atlanta, even our first 4 or 5 years, Ted Turner owned our team, and we were heading in the right direction. And we got a little caught up. We had an ownership group that bought the team in 2005. A little dispute amongst ownership, and it kind of sidetracked us somewhat, and we can never get back on track there. But when you look at Nashville, what they've done there. Pete Carmana's here has invested a lot of time and energy and money into Raleigh. They've had some great success in the past, winning the Cup in 2006. And, when I got in here, the one thing that I realized right off the bat, the Hurricanes brand was very strong in this marketplace. We had a little disconnect with our fans and our sponsors, and that's the number one step that we're trying to correct, and we've made huge improvements in it, and we got more ways we can continue to improve that.
I think you'd appreciate. I did a little homework for you. This is an international broadcast, but in Pinehurst, North Carolina today, and I've seen maybe 10, 12 hurricane banners. So put the business card solicitation, season ticket notice under their mailboxes, and you'll be getting contacted from them shortly. I'm sure you'll appreciate it.
Yeah, we love that. We have one of our minority investors, J.J. Jackson, lives at Pinehurst, and I think he's brought everybody at Pinehurst at one time or another to a hockey game this past year that I've got an opportunity to meet. So that's good to hear. And we look at that. We're not just a triangle team. We're the state team as the only NHL professional team here. So we're trying to reach everybody.
Don, how hard is this to compete against the? This is North Carolina. Here is obviously a college basketball state. With the Hornets, they're attempting to reclaim pro basketball. It's obviously a football state with the Panthers as well. Very competitive environment, but how do you rise above that over time?
Well, we talk about here in the Triangle area, being the only professional sports team. The colleges, to me, can work in our favor, and we started to utilize that more last year. There's a lot of division between NC State, UNC, and Duke, and even University of South Carolina. But the one thing that we can always bring to the table is when they come to Hurricane games, they all can root for the same team. So we don't really feel like we compete with the college sports. Obviously, they get a lot of attention in October and November when our season first starts, and it's evident by our attendance. As of December 21st this year, we were 2,600 people more a game paid. Had somewhat to do with how the team was playing, but it's also we become the only thing happening in this area.
A couple more. International audience, World Cup of Hockey, as one of the guys who has to shepherd his assets through a grueling off-season schedule heading into training camp. Are you all for the World Cup of Hockey? Excited about what it stands for and what it might do?
Yes, very much so. I was part of the World Cup in 2004 as the assistant general manager, and I've been fortunate to be as a general manager of the 2006 Olympic team. The World Cup, to me, is a different time. The Olympics, the only negative for the Olympics is it's a great obviously, product for everybody, but it breaks up our season. You have to shut down for 17, 18 days, where the World Cup doesn't do that. So you get all the players coming in off the summer. They're all fresh, ready to go. So I think it's going to be the best hockey in the world at this time, and I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about particularly the U.S. team, since I've been part of the U.S. program for so many years.
Are you also comfortable about the opportunity for expansion? Obviously Gary's leadership is that expansion is a possibility, not a guarantee, and there's always the subject of dilution, but you're always going into other different markets, whether it is Quebec or Vegas or otherwise. How do you, as an active member of the league feel about expansion?
Well, I think, we get kept up to date on all the information. To me, expansion, if you have the right city, the right ownership group, there's a tremendous amount of talent out there. So I know people talk about dilution in the league. I don't see that as a big obstacle to get around. I think the key, anytime you're going to look at expansion, is does the city, are they going to welcome hockey? Is it going to have an opportunity to succeed there? And then number one thing is the ownership group, because as you know, coming into professional sports is not a small business anymore. So you have to have ownership that's entrenched not only in the community, but can withstand the financial end of it. So if you have those two things, then I certainly would support the league either direction. But if expansion happens, I think it's good for the league.
What's the business look like, let's say, 10 years from now? What does it look like running an NHL franchise, and what does the NHL look like generally?
Well, that's a great question. I think 10 years from now, we're always changing. The environments are changing. Even the arenas are changing as the new ones are being built. So, who knows exactly what the technology is going to be, but there's no doubt, with social media and everything we do now in the arena, those things are only going to be enhancements for our fans. Because anytime we do anything, whether it's relocating people in the building through beacons that they get on their iPhone, we're always talking about the customer experience. We get people here for 3 hours. Our fans are in the building for 3 hours. We got to entertain them. And, professional sports are not inexpensive to go to. So you got to make sure, win or lose, that you entertain your fans. So where we're going to be in another 5 years is hard to predict. In 10 years, I think you're going to see the league continuing to grow, even in its existing markets, because the base around the number of kids playing in hockey in the United States in particular, in all those non-traditional hockey markets, continues to grow, and we're seeing players drafted from every state now, almost in the union, that hockey is alive and growing quickly.
Finally, Don, we take this in May, though we archive it and use it throughout the year, and we are watching 4 teams in the conference semis, and they don't include the Hurricanes, but it doesn't matter. But as a guy that runs a franchise, do you tune in or tune out? Do you hit the golf course now and say, wait till next year? Do you watch the semis and finals? Do you say, we're getting there next year? What's your current thought?
Yeah, no, I watch every game very interestedly for many reasons. But, for us, as business people, the one thing we pay attention to is who's spending money on television, who's spending money on dashboards, in-ice logos, all that, because for us, we know that those people, those companies are hockey fans, and now we have to tell them why Raleigh would be a place to come. So, I watch everything, and then, of course, the games themselves. Yeah, we'd love to be playing at this time of the year. I was fortunate to win a cup with Detroit in 97, 98, and there's no better feeling than playoff hockey and then obviously winning. But the hockey is just intense right now, and it's really fun to watch. So I try not to miss any of the games.
Don Waddell, the guy that runs the Carolina Panthers, and we will say that the Carolina Hurricanes, and we will say that the Hurricanes are certainly in good hands with Don, Peter Kamanos, and the entire group, and looking up not only for Carolinas, but also for the National Hockey League. Rick Horrow, keeping score. Be back in a minute.